I think it's okay to throw your side projects in the bin. I'm not really advocating against people being ambitious or wanting to build startups, but I want to talk about my approach to side projects and how what I've been doing recently to change my perspective on how I approach things. So my typical side project goes something like this. I have this brilliant idea and I can't sleep. My brain just keeps going. Scope creep has already begun and I haven't even started. This project could be so good for so many people. How could this project scale? How much would it cost me to run? Could I monetize the idea? I'm so optimistic that I might have even bought a domain name. I'm worried that someone's going to steal my future one-person SaaS product. I might even tell my friends and family about my brilliant idea because I'm so excited and so overly ambitious. So I spend the first whole day picking some cloud technologies. I know it's got to scale infinitely. I pick some frameworks and some libraries that I want to use. Maybe I change my mind like 3 or 4 different times. And I spend the entire day detouring, watching online courses, tutorials, learning new technology, just so I can get started on my new project. And then finally, I managed to get something on the screen. An over-engineered Hello World app. Maybe I feel good about it, maybe I don't. But I've sure spent a lot of time making it happen so far. But when it's actually time to start delivering on the idea, it's actually quite difficult. And some of my initial assumptions don't really pan out. My idea might not be that great in the first place, so I start to question it. I've already told people about the idea though, so I guess I need to keep at it. Ultimately, though, I hit the point where I start to question the entire thing. I start to think maybe it's going to take me all year to finish this project, so I give up. And I feel like I've wasted a whole lot of time and kind of achieved nothing. But then something happens. I have this brilliant idea. There's something going weird. That's all right. We'll keep going. I can't sleep. I started spiraling again, haven't I? What does that say? Maybe I'll just try turning it off and on again. So maybe we should start over. How else could I approach side projects? I said I felt like I wasted my time when I abandoned the project earlier, but did I? Did I actually learn something useful? I think I probably did, and I was just focusing on the wrong things. I think you should probably ask yourself, why? Why are you wanting to build a side project? Is it to be a better engineer? Do you just like coding? Is it just for fun, being creative? I think if it's to make millions and retire off into the sun, I think you're going to be sorely disappointed. I think we should build things just for fun, and they should just be really dumb, silly things, and build stuff for ourselves. Solve some problem in our own lives. There's a really good talk that I watched previously about the value of building really dumb things that I'll link down in the description. I think we should build some stuff just to learn, and I'll let ourselves detour. If we're not focusing so much on building a really fancy SaaS product, you might discover that you're really good at something that you've never tried before because you were just focused on trying to learn things. Sometimes I might also take a detour by pausing the project and writing a blog post or recording a video. So as mentioned, I think we should build smaller projects and more often. I don't think there's any substitute for being a better engineer than just churning out code as much as you can. So I think you should just start small and see where it goes. And if you find you keep abandoning projects and don't feel good about it, it might be because the scope of your idea was too big to even be achievable in the first place. Maybe it was just a bad idea too. I think also smaller side projects leave you more time for your friends and family. After all, the only people who are actually going to remember and care about the fact you stayed up late fixing a bug on your new startup idea are your friends and family. So I also think building more varied projects will make you a better engineer. If you're building stuff and it's for you, you're also going to be in the mindset that it doesn't really matter if you finish the project at all. So you're more likely to throw yourself in a deep end and just try something new. Maybe it's a new programming language. Maybe up to this point, you've always spent your entire career only writing one language. And maybe this could be a good chance to try and start from scratch. Because if you're not trying to build a product, does it really matter if you're going back to basics and just trying to learn? And maybe again, you'll find something you're really good at that you didn't think of before. And also, it doesn't really matter if you're building something that other people have done 1,000 times before you. But maybe you actually will find something that's novel in that no one's ever done before, with your perspectives coming from a different programming language. So you might say to me, well, that's great, but I actually want to build something and succeed. As I mentioned earlier, I think one of the best things you can do here is to try and build something for yourself or for those close to you. A recent example would be Wordle. The creator just wanted to make a fun game for himself and his girlfriend, and he built it in technology he was familiar with without any monetization in mind at all. I think also if you build something good and you're using it, then you kind of already know that it's useful. Be careful though when building stuff for someone else, even when they're close to you, because there's a risk of overpromising. And I've noticed that something strange seems to happen as soon as you start to tell people about a project and you get excited about it. It tends to die. And I've been trying to think about why that might be. And I think it's because you put too much pressure on yourself and you start focusing on the wrong things, and you're no longer just trying to learn and explore the idea. And I think if something isn't working out, I think the most important thing to do is just to move on. But before you move on, I think you should try to figure out what it was you got out of it. Figure out what worked, what didn't, and then move on. So you should reflect on what you've learned. Maybe you'll be able to make something else out of the project. Like I mentioned, you could write a talk, write a blog post, record a video, build a new library that maybe you ever use, but maybe someone else will find a use for it in the future. Just try to find some other things that you could share that you did learn along the way. I've focused on side projects, mostly framed around personal side projects, but what about side projects at my job? Well, I guess this is a bit of a lukewarm take because I think broadly people would agree, but I think hackathons and prototypes and personal side projects at work or things done in 10% time probably should have zero expectation to leave to production code. The reason I think that is because if you don't really care if the code is going to make it to production or not, you can focus on actually trying to prove that the problem you're trying to solve is worth solving at all, because you're not focusing on writing unit tests, doing TDD, and all the other stuff that slows you down as a developer. You also might, when you're working on a side project at work, you might finish it and then present it to other people, and you might get some reactions in Slack but it doesn't really go anywhere. It gets no backing. I also think this is fine. If something is truly valuable to a business, it will be picked up in the future, or it won't. It may even not have been a good idea. You could probably say the same for the old 3-year-old Jira tickets sitting in your backlog, that if it's a good idea, someone else will come up with it and open a new ticket, but if it's been sitting there and no one's touched it for 3 years, or even 1 year, close it and move on. So why even bother? If you're not trying to build something for production and you get given some time where you can spend and do innovation, what is the actual point? Well, I think the focus on this time set aside should be for learning and failing and proving concepts, or equally just as valuable is proving stuff that isn't going to work and won't work. I think technologies or techniques that I've used on small side projects in the past have always ended up helping in the future. Whenever you're an engineer, you're building up layers and layers on your knowledge, so everything that you learn can help you with the next challenge that you're facing. So to wrap up, I think you should use your curiosity to work on side projects that interest you and ideally for you. Try not to focus on extrinsic goals like monetization. Always try to be learning things. And if you stop enjoying it and you're no longer getting what you hoped out of it, just try and move on and work on other things. So I think you should try and embrace your creativity and, again, share what you've learned. You're not alone in having a large GitHub graveyard. And for me, that's actually a good thing because it shows that you're kind of just exploring things and seeing where things take you. If you learn something along the way whilst abandoning a project, I think you should consider sharing it with others in some form.